They say small towns keep secrets better than the cities ever could, because in the quiet, no one expects the storm. But in the harbor town of Sana Bay, hidden just 35 miles from South Africa's bustling Western Cape, something happened that shattered the silence and the soul of a community. A child vanished. Not from the shadows of a city alley or the chaos of a busy market, but from a place so quiet you could hear the ocean breathe. This was Middelpoos, a weather-beaten informal settlement tucked behind Sana Bay's industrial port, where rusted boats sway in rhythm with broken dreams. It's here, inside a single-room shack crammed among hundreds, that Joshlin Smith was born on October 23, 2017. Just 6 years old, blonde hair, blue-gray eyes, a light in a place where most windows stay dark. Her mother, Kelly Smith, barely holding her life together, was a recovering addict. Her father, Jose Minke, drifted in and out of her world like the tide, never fully anchored. Joshlin's life wasn't easy, but those who knew her said she laughed easily, smiled often, and loved deeply. But one ordinary day in early 2024, she was gone. No break-in, no scream, no signs of struggle, just gone. And as investigators peeled back the layers of what really went on inside that small shack in Middelpoos, what they found wasn't just unsettling, it was monstrous. What began as a missing child case quickly unraveled into something far darker. Whispers of drug debt, betrayals that cut deeper than blood, and a theory so horrifying it makes you question what a mother's love really looks like when darkness takes hold. This is not a case about a child getting lost. It's a case about trust, addiction, desperation, and what people are truly capable of when survival becomes a currency. I'm Dominic, and this is True Crimes by Dominic, where we don't just tell stories, we open wounds. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let me know in the comments. Do you believe a mother could ever be complicit in her own child's disappearance? Or worse? Because by the end of this story, that question won't feel so far-fetched. Now, let's go back to the day it all began. At just 6 years old, Joshlin Smith had reached a milestone that many families would celebrate with joy. She had become a grade 1 learner at Diazville Primary School. Her first uniform, her first classroom, her first official school photo, a snapshot of a beaming child, proudly holding up her graduation certificate, her eyes full of hope and wonder. That picture was framed and propped up inside the family's modest shack, right there in their makeshift living room. A reminder that even in struggle, there was still pride, still potential, still dreams. But behind that photo was a story far more complicated and far more dangerous. There's a figure we haven't spoken about yet, a man who walked into that home and would soon become a central character in a nightmare no one saw coming. His name was Boeta Apollos, though some knew him simply as Jack. At some point in Joshlin's young life, her mother Kelly brought him home not just as a visitor, but as her partner. She introduced him to her children and, just like that, declared him Joshlin's new father. From that day forward, he was a permanent presence in their already overburdened household. Now, understand this. The family was barely surviving as it was. They lived in a cramped shack, squeezed tight by poverty. Kelly worked as a domestic cleaner when she could get work, and Boeta, at least on paper, worked as a gardener. But neighbors painted a far different picture. Many said they rarely, if ever, saw Boeta doing any actual work. Instead, he was often spotted wandering the settlement in a daze or lying unconscious somewhere nearby, the telltale signs of a man deep in addiction. According to locals, he was either out of his mind on drugs or completely out cold. And yet, this was the man Kelly entrusted with her daughter's safety. It's easy to judge from the outside, but Kelly's life hadn't exactly been one of stability or structure. In fact, from the moment she was born, she was handed more pain than peace. According to a man identifying himself as her brother, A.M. and R. Daniels, Kelly was the oldest sibling in their family and the only one born to a different father. That, he claimed, was the reason she was separated from the rest of her family as a child. While the others moved to Cape Town, Kelly was sent away to live with their grandmother in Sana Bay. Daniels said it was done to make things easier for everyone. Easier for the family, but clearly not for Kelly. Still, Daniels insisted that Kelly wasn't deprived. She was given access to the same things the other siblings had: education, spending money, support. She wasn't thrown away. But somewhere along the road, something cracked inside her. By the time she reached her teenage years, she had found an escape hatch, and its name was drugs. Her descent into addiction didn't just ruin her potential, it changed the course of every life around her. It tore apart the future before it could even begin. In 2016, Kelly, then pregnant with Joshlin, had already become known to local social services. According to a report filed by her own grandmother, Kelly had become violent and aggressive. She allegedly hit and cursed at her grandmother's son, threatened others in the house, and even lashed out when confronted. That report marked the beginning of her formal entry into the system. Fearing for the safety of the household, the grandmother initially requested a protection order. But like many wounds in families, it was never fully treated, only bandaged. She later withdrew the request and instead sent Kelly to a local rehab center. Meanwhile, her two older children stayed behind with their great-grandmother. This was 2016, the same year Kelly was carrying Joshlin, which means the possibility that she was already deep into drug use during her pregnancy is heartbreakingly high. From 2018 to 2020, things didn't improve much. Kelly would bounce in and out of sobriety, employment, and stability, and Boetta was no help. In fact, some say he only made things worse. Joshlin was growing up in a house with love, but a dangerous kind. The kind wrapped in cycles of pain, dependency, and survival. And somewhere in that mess, this bright, smiling child tried to make sense of her world. A world where she was adored one minute and surrounded by chaos the next. But as her presence brightened her school and touched her neighbors, inside the walls of that shack, a silent storm was building. And soon it would explode in the worst way imaginable. As the years wore on, Kelly Smith drifted in and out of drug treatment centers, always with promises to do better, always with hope, however fragile. At one point, she returned to her grandmother's home, claiming she was ready to take her children back. She also announced that she had reconciled with Jose Mecca, the man who had been a ghost in Joshlin's life for so long. But the home she returned to wasn't the one she left. Kelly's grandmother had grown weary not just from age, but from disappointment. This wasn't the bright, kind-hearted girl she had once raised. This was someone else now, bitter, volatile, and drowning in choices she never seemed able to change. With little fight left in her, the grandmother handed the children back to Kelly. And just like that, the cycle began again. This time in the chaotic sprawl of Middlepost. But not everyone abandoned Kelly. In 2018, she met Natasha Andrews and her husband at church. Natasha was one of those people who could see through the smiles, and she could tell immediately that Kelly was struggling more than she let on. Out of compassion, Natasha offered to help by watching over young Joshlin while Kelly looked for work. At first, it was supposed to be just for a few hours, but hours turned into days into weeks, and something didn't sit right. Natasha noticed bruises, dark marks around Joshlin's small arms. She suspected something was very wrong. She confronted Kelly gently, and the truth came pouring out like a broken dam. Kelly admitted that life with Josie was unbearable. She said she lived in fear. She said he was violent, not just toward her, but possibly toward Joshlin as well. Kelly even bore the marks of his temper herself: bruises, swelling, the kind of injuries that don't come from accidents. Natasha was horrified, and in that moment, she decided to do more than just babysit. She began the process to formally adopt Joshlin. Surprisingly, Kelly agreed. She even met with a social worker to start the paperwork. It seemed like there might be hope for Joshlin, after all, a new path, a safer life. But then, Josie got wind of it, and the adoption stopped dead in its tracks. Kelly backed out. Still, the Andrews family refused to walk away. They loved Joshlin. They couldn't abandon her now. Even without a legal adoption, Kelly would routinely leave Joshlin in their care, sometimes for days. According to her, it was to keep her daughter safe while she tried to navigate the toxic relationship with Jose. Her other two children were left with other friends and family. Eventually, Kelly ended things with Jose. It was sometime before 2023. A clean slate, maybe. A shot at stability. When asked in court whether she believed Kelly could provide a safe, loving home on her own, away from José's shadow, Natasha answered, yes. But on February 19, 2024, that hope shattered. Kelly returned to her shack in Middle Post after working at the Zager family's residence. Her kids, she said, had stayed home that day. Their school uniforms were dirty, and she didn't have detergent. No money, no way to clean them. When she got back, neither her daughter Joshlin nor her boyfriend Bueta Palistas were anywhere in sight. She searched. Nothing. Eventually, she found Bueta smoking in a nearby shack, glassy-eyed, detached, unreachable. When she asked him where Joshlin was, he gave her a blank stare and muttered something chilling. I haven't seen her since 9 a.m. It was nearly dark. Kelly panicked. She ran to her neighbors, knocked on doors, begged for answers. But no one had seen Joshlin. By that night, the police were involved. A missing persons case was opened. Joshlin Smith was officially missing. She was last seen wearing a light blue t-shirt and blue denim trousers. She had a small birthmark on her right arm. 6 years old, barefoot, gone. The residents of Middle Post don't have much, but what they do have is each other. Word spread like wildfire. Search parties formed almost immediately. They combed through the nearby dunes with flashlights and desperate hearts. One of Kelly's neighbors, Namla Tinsi, even traveled with her to Diazville, checking every possible spot they could think of. But they found nothing. Namla later told investigators that Kelly's behavior was odd. At first, she was in pieces, crying, yelling, frantic. But on the way back home, Kelly suddenly shifted. She started making jokes, laughing, as if the pressure had lifted. It felt unnatural, and it wasn't just Namla who noticed. On February 20th, the day after the disappearance, officers from Cape Town arrived to assist the investigation. They approached Kelly's shack and heard something strange. Loud music blasting from inside. Not weeping, not silence, but music. And Kelly? She recited her version of events again. She'd gone to work, left her kids in Bueta's care, came home, no Joshlin, no answers. Naturally, police turned to Bueta next. They found him again, still off in the distance, smoking in a shed. Kelly was with them, but instead of asking about Joshlin, she turned to him and asked casually if he had remembered to fill the gas tank. No urgency, no anger, no desperation. When pressed by police, Bueta was evasive, fidgety, cold. All he said was that he lost track of the day, that he didn't know where Joshlin had gone. His words were flat, detached, like someone recounting a misplaced object, not a child. On February 27th, police brought him in for further questioning. This time, he admitted something more alarming. He said he felt responsible for Joshlin's disappearance, but still insisted he didn't know where she was. According to South African authorities, a child goes missing in the country every 5 hours. Each case is tragic. Each deserves attention. But Joshlin's case exploded into national consciousness. The media swarmed. Flyers flooded every corner of the Western Cape. News crews came. Residents turned over every rock, searching. And Kelly, the grieving mother, stood at the center of it all, giving interviews, pleading for help. And yet, investigators noticed something unsettling. It was as if Kelly wasn't just distressed by the tragedy, she was enthralled by the attention. One officer said she seemed almost giddy, as if all of this had made her famous. Then came the voice note. Kelly's estranged sister, Michaela Daniels, a police constable with the Northern Cape Public Order Policing Unit, revealed that in January 2024, a month before Joshlin vanished, Kelly reached out to her on Facebook Messenger. The conversation was brief, polite, nothing alarming. But on February 21st, 2 days after the disappearance, Kelly sent another message. Oh, Michaela, frantic with worry, pressed for details. Hours passed, no reply. Then, Kelly finally responded with something that sent chills down Michaela's spine. My sister, my child is here in the informal settlement. Someone wants to sell my child. But Salana is currently a hotspot. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel real. But one thing was clear. Something far darker was happening behind closed doors. As the days dragged on and little Joshlin remained missing, The silence around her disappearance started to rot, not just from the weight of unanswered questions, but from the disturbing way those closest to her seemed to behave. One of those voices belonged to Michaela, a concerned family member who repeatedly reached out to Kelly, desperate to know more, not just about where Joshlin might be, but about the man she'd left her children with. Michaela wanted answers about Boetta's behavior, about his presence in that shack, about whether Kelly was telling the whole truth. But days went by with no response. And when Kelly finally replied, her words were chilling. In a single dismissive message, she said, "My sister, the questions you're asking are the same ones the police already asked me. I know you're a police officer, but I'm not going to answer these questions again." There was no panic in her tone, no heartbreak, no urgency. It was as if she was already emotionally detached from the entire crisis, like the grieving mother mask she wore at first had already started to peel. As whispers turned into open suspicion, tensions in Middle Post exploded. Neighbors were outraged. Angry mobs formed outside Kelly's shack, furious at the couple's cold, erratic behavior. Police had to step in not to arrest them at this point, but to protect them from their own community. Kelly and Boetta were placed under protective custody, shielded not by their innocence, but by the danger of their growing infamy. But the real turning point came on March 1st, 2024, nearly 2 weeks after Joshlin had vanished, when her biological father, José Miquel, made a devastating allegation to authorities. In a formal statement to police, he revealed a belief that many had only whispered about in private. He believed Kelly had sold their daughter, traded her to settle a drug debt. The thought was almost too horrific to comprehend, but from that moment on, the case exploded. Search teams were doubled, media attention intensified, and behind the scenes, investigators started stitching together a chilling timeline. Boetta, the so-called stepfather, became even more erratic. His statements constantly changed. First, he claimed Joshlin had gone out to play. Then he insisted she'd been picked up by a godfather. Later, he admitted he left the house altogether. None of it made sense, and none of it brought the search team any closer to Joshlin. Meanwhile, Teresa LaRue, a local government official who had joined the ground search for Joshlin, voiced the growing suspicion on everyone's mind. "We've been looking day and night," she said, "but it's as if this child just vanished into the air. And that's impossible, not in the middle of a densely packed settlement in broad daylight. Somehow this 6-year-old girl had disappeared, and not one person had seen a thing." As the pressure on Kelly mounted, even more disturbing rumors began to surface, the kind that made seasoned investigators stop in their tracks. One name kept coming up: a Sangoma. For those unfamiliar, a Sangoma is a traditional healer often revered in Southern African communities for their spiritual knowledge and ancestral connections. To some, they're protectors. To others, they're manipulators. But to the police, now hearing that Kelly may have trafficked her child to one for ritual purposes, they became a central figure in the growing nightmare. Then on March 5th, just over 2 weeks after Joshlin's disappearance, police made 4 arrests: Raquel Kelly Smith, Yakin Boetta Apolis, Stefano Van Rijn, a friend of the couple, and a Sangoma named Fumsa Sagakwa. Stefano had reportedly been present at the Smith residence the very day Joshlin went missing. An investigator revealed that he was actually the first to mention the Sangoma theory, possibly while under the influence, but it was too serious to dismiss. The big question now was, had Joshlin really been sold to this traditional healer? Was this the break they needed to solve the case? Unfortunately, it wasn't that simple. While Fumsa was, in fact, a practicing Sangoma in the region, she quickly appeared to be a scapegoat. After a week in custody, during which she claimed she was beaten and coerced into confessing to unspeakable acts like harvesting Joshlin's eyes and skin, the evidence simply didn't hold. Her alibi was confirmed by community members. No proof ever surfaced. Eventually, she was released. But in her place, police brought in someone else. Her name was Laurentia Lombard, a known drug user and friend of Kelly's. She too had been in the house that day, and now she was being named a key witness, possibly even an accomplice. Initially, Laurentia denied everything, but as the walls closed in, she flipped, cutting a deal in exchange for state witness protection and a lesser charge. Suddenly, everything shifted. The prosecution now had a living witness to back up the most disturbing claims in the case. According to her, on February 19, 2024, Kelly left her two youngest kids, Joshlin and her brother, in Boetta's care. She took her eldest to school, then headed to her job cleaning for the Zaggers. Around 1 p.m., she returned briefly, claiming she needed money to buy detergent for the children's uniforms. But instead of detergent, she bought Tick, a local street name for meth in the Western Cape. Joined by Stefano, Kelly reportedly smoked the drugs, then announced she had to go back to work. She left the kids in the shack, allegedly bathing at the time. Boetta's version? He claimed that Laurentia came over, shared a smoke, and then left, with Joshlin. He passed out in a separate shack. When Kelly later woke him up, the first thing she asked was, "Where's Josh?" Detective Constable Rafal Sopi from the Family Violence and Child Protection Unit later interviewed Laurentia and Stefano the night Joshlin was reported missing. She noted Laurentia was visibly anxious, scratching herself and fidgeting. When asked if she'd used drugs that day, Laurentia's reply was haunting. "No, not yet." In that interview, Stefano brought up the Sangoma theory again, claiming Laurentia had left with Joshlin and didn't come back with her. Later, he suggested Laurentia's boyfriend, Ayanda, may have handed the child over to a traditional healer. In March, police uncovered a bloody bedsheet and pillowcase, but forensic analysis showed the blood wasn't Joshlin's. Still, there was growing suspicion that the little girl had been caught in a web of addiction, exploitation, and unthinkable betrayal. One of the more chilling testimonies came from Mrs. Kelly Zagger, Kelly's employer. She claimed she begged Kelly to tell the truth. She noticed Kelly acting strangely after Joshlin's disappearance, far too calm for a grieving mother. She even claimed she had to coach Kelly on how to appear upset for the cameras during a live news segment. Another witness, grade 1 teacher Edna Neymar, recalled a chilling conversation with Kelly just one day after Joshlin vanished. Kelly allegedly said a Nigerian man had called her claiming a child, not named specifically as Joshlin, had been shipped in a container to West Africa. Kelly told Edna she hadn't reported the call out of fear of retribution from the people of Sana. And that's when another horrifying layer emerged. Former friends claimed that Kelly had joked months earlier about selling her children. Back in August of 2023, according to Stephen Coetzee, she would laugh about it, even naming a price. By January 2024, she had allegedly resolved to go through with it. As public outrage erupted, Judge Nathan Erasmus of the Western Cape High Court took the case to a local community center to accommodate the overwhelming number of spectators. Charges were filed for kidnapping and human trafficking. 90 witnesses stood ready. But all eyes were on Laurentia Lombard. Her testimony would be the one to either crack this case wide open or condemn it to speculation. And what she revealed chilled everyone in that courtroom. She told me the person looking for Joshlin wanted her for her eyes and her skin. By week 2 of the trial, the courtroom had grown heavy, not just with evidence, but with dread. The public wanted closure. The family wanted answers. And the prosecution? They needed a miracle. They got it, or at least they thought they did. Her name was Laurentia Lent, and she was the wild card that could either blow the case wide open or destroy it completely. A former acquaintance of Kelly Smith and her boyfriend, Boetta Apollos, Laurentia had once been considered a suspect herself. Her connection to the alleged sale of Joshlin made her both dangerous and indispensable. But before the court could rely on her words, they had to confront a hard truth. Was she telling the truth, or just trying to save herself? On day 8 of the trial, Laurentia took the stand. She didn't come with tears or theatrics, just a story, a chilling, twisted tale that prosecutors hoped the jury would believe. Laurentia testified that she had been pulled into the orbit of the accused through her boyfriend, a drug dealer, who regularly supplied both Kelly and Boetta. That's how she met them. First Kelly, then Boetta. She said she'd known Kelly the longest, for nearly a year. Boetta was newer. And as for Stefano Van Ryn, the third accused, she barely knew him, only 6 or 7 months before Joshlin disappeared. But the weight of her testimony came from what she claimed happened on the day Joshlin vanished. According to Laurentia, she was inside the Smith household on the very day of the incident. She said Kelly was up early that morning, packing a black cooler bag with Joshlin's belongings, a sweater, underwear, a few small things. Laurentia said Kelly was calm, composed, no signs of panic, no second thoughts, just instructions. Joshlin would be looked after by Boetta until Kelly returned from work. And then came the detail that chilled the room. Kelly had allegedly told Laurentia, in plain words, that a woman would be arriving at 2 p.m. to collect Joshlin, and when she arrived, Kelly herself would walk her daughter to the woman. Sure enough, 2 p.m. came. Laurentia said she saw the woman with her own eyes dressed in a white blouse, a green skirt, and a green scarf pulled low over her face, patterned with dots. The kind of image that clings to your memory, not because it's remarkable, but because of what it meant. Laurentia claimed she stood there and watched as Kelly prepared her daughter, handed her the same black cooler bag, and walked with her toward the waiting vehicle. Then, just before the car door closed, the mysterious woman turned to the three adults left behind, Laurentia, Boetta, and Stefano, and gave them a chilling command. Do not tell the police what happened. Wait a day, file a missing persons report. And just like that, they were all part of it. After that, things began to unravel fast. Laurentia described Kelly's demeanor as guilty, nervous, but not broken. Boetta, on the other hand, acted like he couldn't be bothered, indifferent, cold. But it's what happened next that shocked everyone. Laurentia told the court that Kelly had later confessed something terrible, something unspeakable, saying she had done something awful to Joshlin. Then she allegedly handed Boetta 20,000 rand in cash. Hours later, Kelly was at Laurentia's door again, this time with the police. She played dumb, asked if Laurentia had any idea where Joshlin was, but Laurentia knew what had happened. She asked Kelly why she wasn't telling the police about the woman, the exchange, the bag, the money. Instead of answers, Kelly offered her a bribe, 1,000 rand. She allegedly offered 1,200 rand to Stefano and promised to split the rest with Boetta. Laurentia told the court she felt trapped, guilty, destroyed. I feel very hurt, she said through tears. I'm a mother of 4. I didn't know what they were planning until it was too late. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. Wherever Joshlin is, I just want her brought home. I hope she's alive. I'm sorry I was involved. It was the most emotion anyone had seen during the trial. Kelly, by contrast, showed nothing. Throughout the proceedings, she remained blank, detached. Her defense attorneys leaned on the same refrain. No forensic evidence, no solid proof. Just hearsay, speculation, and gossip. Boetta's lawyer parroted that defense too, insisting there was nothing tying his client to the crime scene. But Stefano's legal team took a different route. They turned their guns on Laurentia, painting her as the true manipulator, the one who knew more than she let on. The court, however, wasn't buying it. Then came May 2nd, 2025. Inside a packed courtroom, Judge Nathan Erasmus delivered a verdict that sent shockwaves across Sana Bay and beyond. He found Kelly Smith, Boetta Apolis, and Stefano Van Ryn guilty of kidnapping and human trafficking. In his statement, Judge Erasmus said the trio's behavior after Joshlin's disappearance was not that of grieving parents or frantic guardians, but of individuals working hard to cover their tracks. Even without a body, even without a clear timeline, the phone records, witness statements, and disturbing behavioral patterns all told a story far louder than words. The sentencing, however, was delayed, postponed until May 23rd. The court announced that additional witnesses could still be called, and that forensic analysts were now combing through Boetta's phone and vehicle, both of which had been oddly neglected during earlier stages of the investigation. But even after their conviction, even with the world watching, none of them broke. Not a word, not a sign of remorse, not a clue about where Joshlin was. Justice, it seemed, had only gone halfway. Joshlin's paternal grandmother, Rita John, stood outside the courthouse after the ruling. She didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She just said, "The verdict is good, but Kelly hasn't told us where Josh is. That breaks my heart." The Western Cape Police Commissioner confirmed that the case remained active, Investigators had even searched a ship in the United Kingdom for 3 days after receiving a tip. Still nothing. He criticized Kelly's silence in court, noting she refused to testify in her own defense, but he promised that the search wouldn't end. Just days after the guilty verdict, another dark twist shook the town. The house where Joshlin had vanished, the small broken shack in Middlepass, was set on fire. The mayor of Santa Bay, Andre Truder, confirmed the blaze. Thankfully, no one was inside, but the damage was done. Arson was suspected, yet no arrests were made. Joshlin's name still remains on South Africa's official missing persons registry. Her photo, that same bright-eyed little girl, smiling for the camera, still sits at the top. Underneath it, one word: missing. Her birth date, October 23rd, 2017. Her disappearance, February 19th, 2024. Her fate, still unknown. Joshlin Smith's story doesn't end with a courtroom verdict, because the truth is, it never really had a proper ending. 3 people now sit behind bars, their freedom gone, their silence louder than ever. And yet the one thing that truly matters where Joshlin is remains a question no one has answered. No grave, no goodbye. Just a 6-year-old girl who vanished into the wind, and a town forever haunted by the echo of her name. We can speculate, we can analyze motives, dissect testimonies, piece together timelines. But somewhere beneath all of that is a simple, devastating truth. A child was taken, and those who loved her were left with nothing but questions. And maybe that's what makes this story so hard to let go of. Because justice without truth, it doesn't heal. It lingers. It haunts. Somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened to Joshlin. Someone knows where she is or where she was taken. And someone made a choice to value silence or money over a child's life. So here's the question I want to leave with you tonight. Do you think justice was truly served? Or has the system simply locked away the symptoms while the sickness still hides in plain sight? Let me know what you believe in the comments. And if Joshlin's story moved you, if it made you think, made you feel, or made you angry, then don't let it end here. Click like, share the story, and subscribe to True Crimes by Dominic, where every week we uncover the human side of horror one story at a time. Don't forget to turn on your notifications so you never miss the next case. Because in a world full of buried truths, you deserve to know what's really out there. Until next time, stay curious, stay alert, and never stop asking the hard questions. Because sometimes it's the silence that screams the loudest.